If I had a gun pointed to my head and had to describe the cognitive difference between a high-rank Rocket League player and a low-rank Rocket League player, but I wasn't allowed to mention anything to do with skill or mechanics and not even team play, this is what I would do. Rocket League is a physics-based game. If we only focus on the ball follows a mathematical trajectory. Something very similar would be the game of pool, and I bet that professional pool players are able to read ball trajectory better than an amateur. So what if we tried to do the same test with Rocket League players? I made a custom Rocket League quiz showing a clip of a ball moving, but then in the middle of the clip, the video would pause, and players would have to answer whether the ball is going in or out of the net. There were a total of 20 clips and players had to answer what rank they were. So I sent this test out and got 376 responses, and these were the results. But before I show you, make your predictions on how you think the players did. Do you think A, higher ranks scored better than lower ranks? B, lower ranks scored better than higher ranks? Or C, all ranks scored evenly? Well, the answer is A and C. This is the average test score by rank, and there's a clear difference between the high rank and the low rank, but I didn't expect the scores to be this close across the board. My guess would have been around 10 out of 20 for the low ranks and 18 out of 20 in the high ranks. Not to mention, somehow bronze players did better than every rank above until diamond. For curiosity, I checked the questions the SSL performed the best at and the worst at, and I couldn't really find a pattern in any of it. Like in this clip, try to guess whether the ball is going in or out. The answer is in. 100% of SSLs got this right, but the rest were around 50 and below, except for the bronze by some miracle. Or in this clip, try to guess whether the ball is going in or out. The answer is in. 50% of SSLs got it right, but every other rank had 80% or above. Except bronze. Again. What this means is that if you completely ignore the car, cognitively predicting ball trajectory has a smaller gap across ranks, but it still noticeably goes up. Dr. Schmalbrock, a doctor of psychology, summarized it best in our conversation. There were 20 questions, so there was a clear, higher rank players did do better compared to lower rank, but it wasn't as big as I thought. It wasn't 10 in the lower ranks and then near 20 in the higher ranks. It was pretty even in the 12, 13, 14 range.
Family of effects you can observe in classical cognitive experiments, and it's called representational momentum. We are good enough at this ability to estimate, for example, where a ball will end up, but not perfect. Humans have this tendency to show this persistent error of over or under estimating depending on the specific task or a setting. The interesting part is it is not a big error, because this would be a problem in this evolutionary sense. If I try to throw a rock at the lion or a bird, or I don't know, and it falls flat far before we reach it, it would be a big error in estimating where it should go. And if you do this often enough, if you train it, if you receive feedback, then you get better. So this makes sense in this context that higher ranked players make less of these estimation errors. But because the error is so small overall in the human population, the difference between high ranked and low ranked players isn't so big, but it's there.
Basically, our brain's ability to predict moving objects is generally good. Lower rank players might deviate in error a tiny bit more than a higher rank, but the outcome will tend to be the same in many cases, since the net covers a large enough area to compensate for the errors. But this test was all about the ball. What about the car? I made a simple plugin in Bakismod which turns the screen black every time your car is above ground level, even when you're on the wall. So what if players had to try and hit aerials while completely blind? This combines both ball trajectory and car control. So I made a custom defense pack and an offense pack to test this. For this test, I got a champ player named Chaos Regen and an SSL/Pro Rocket League coach, Luke. Just for some context, I had Luke take this test very late at night, so performance could vary. But here were the results for the blind test.
Got it. First try. Is that third or fourth? One of the two.
I'll probably look it back. In the defense pack, both players performed really well, especially Luke pulling this off for the last shot. Can you tell me like a short little like how you're feeling or thinking?
Main thing that I was when I was feeling is it definitely is a shock to the subconscious brain.
Mhm.
Like, what's it called? Consciously, I was ready for it, but it was still a shock whenever it would go black, even though I knew it would go black. But in terms of actually going for it, I didn't feel uncomfortable by any means. I feel like I wanted to overcompensate consciously, but every time I hit it, I stopped trying to overthink it.
But on offense, this is when it got really interesting. The shots that required more precision were way harder, even though with full vision, it's very easy.
It was on target. Scored that one.
Ooh, nice.
First try.
Oh, nice. Oh, that was a nice one.
Shoot that air dribble.
But unsurprisingly, air dribbling of any kind was practically impossible, although Luke was able to pull off a short one.
The part that feels difficult is precision. I feel like I'm extremely accurate, and I'm always able to keep my car and the ball somewhat close, but being precise, like the tiny, tiny movements that I need, is what's more difficult. I feel like a pro that's gotten even more precise movements down to where they can hit like double taps or shots like 99 out of 100 times. I feel like a pro would actually be able to be a bit more precise than I am. But even then, I would still say at a certain point, probably everyone's accurate to the same degree at the higher level.
Similar to the in or out test, players have to predict the general position of where the ball is going, but also control the car. So in defense, even if you have subtle errors in ball prediction or car prediction, you still have a reasonable likelihood of hitting the ball, leading to a successful defense. But in offense, the goal isn't to just hit the ball, but to also hit it inside the net. So the point of contact actually gets mathematically smaller. Now, even small errors can turn into a hit or miss. But if you try to include air dribbling, now we're multiplying the errors, aka chaos theory. But there's a super interesting thought experiment here. The errors are a result of the prediction in a feedbackless state. But what if you could receive a form of feedback that's not vision? This is more theoretical, but in theory, if the ball has a very specific auditory cue, or if you could somehow tell the orientation of your car from audio alone, maybe someone skilled enough could air dribble blind. Other methods could be haptic feedback, like the vibration of the controller that tells you the exact position of the ball. Or maybe you are strapped in an aerotrim machine, so you use your sense of balance to know the orientation of the car. But let's go back to Rocket League. If we go back to the very first question where I had to describe the cognitive difference between a high-rank Rocket League player and a low-rank Rocket League player, without mentioning skill or mechanics and disregarding team play, it would be the difference in cognitive precision. All Rocket League players are reasonably accurate, but only the best combines it with pinpoint precision. They are essentially precision maxing.